When July arrives, many gardeners start to slow down a little. The weather gets hotter, the soil dries out faster, and a few crops planted in spring begin to turn yellow. Cucumbers start weakening, zucchini produces fewer fruits, and tomatoes in hot, humid regions are no longer as vigorous as they were before. Many people think, maybe it's already too late to start seeds now. But when I observe the practical gardening methods of Amish families, I see that they usually do not look at July as the end point. On the contrary, this is the time when they check the garden again, clear out tired plants, make use of empty spaces, and sow the next round of crops to extend the harvest season. The important thing is not planting as much as possible, but choosing the right crops. Fast harvest crops, crops that can handle late summer, crops suitable for fall, or crops that can be stored and used gradually. In today's video, I will share 10 crops that are very worth sowing in July, suitable for most gardens if you choose the right varieties and correctly count the number of days left before the first frost. The first crop I always prioritize sowing again in July is cucumber, because this plant gives results quickly, but it is not worth making old plants struggle through the whole season. Many cucumber trellises planted in spring may still look alive, but in reality they have already started to get tired. Yellow leaves, disease spots, weak vines, fewer fruits, and the whole trellis no longer looks fresh like it did at first. At this point, instead of trying to save every single leaf, the more practical way is to sow a new round. Cucumbers are very suitable for succession planting. When the soil is around 70 degrees Fahrenheit or higher, the seeds usually germinate within a few days to about 1 week. Many varieties can be harvested after about 50 to 70 days, so if you sow in early July and still have enough warm days left, you can still have cucumbers in late summer or early fall. When choosing varieties, prioritize fast maturity, good disease resistance, and suitability for your garden space. If you have a trellis, Marketmore 76 is a classic slicing variety, with fruits about 8 to 9 inches long. If you grow in containers, small beds, or a short season region, Space Master or Bush Champion will be more compact. In short season northern regions, sow early in July and choose 50 to 60 day varieties. In the hot, humid south, prioritize disease resistant varieties, an airy trellis, and watering at the base. In the hot, dry west, keep moisture even, mulch around the base, and give young seedlings light afternoon shade. Don't wait until the old trellis is completely dead. When the plant starts producing fewer fruits and disease keeps coming back, sow a new round so the young plants can replace it in time. The second crop I will sow again in July is zucchini, because this plant produces very quickly, but its life cycle is often shorter than many people think. In a practical Amish garden, people do not try to keep a plant that has already passed its peak forever. If early season zucchini starts to have torn leaves, fewer female blossoms, smaller fruits, or weak stems because of pests and disease, that is the time to prepare the next round. Zucchini is suitable for July because it grows fast. When the soil is around 70 degrees Fahrenheit or higher, the seeds germinate well, the plants grow strongly, and many varieties can be harvested after about 50 to 65 days. If your area still has enough warm days before frost, a July planting of zucchini can still produce fruit in late summer or early fall. When choosing varieties, prioritize bush-type plants, early maturity, easy management, and suitability for small gardens. Black Beauty, Ford Hook, or a better disease-resistant variety like Dunya F1 are all worth considering. If you grow in containers or narrow beds, choose a compact variety, because one healthy plant is sometimes enough for a small family. In short-season northern regions, only sow if there are still about 2 warm months left. In the hot, humid south, you need airy beds, mulch to hold moisture, and monitoring for squash bugs and squash vine borers. In hot, dry regions, water deeply at the base and give young seedlings light afternoon shade. The third crop to consider in July is butternut squash. It is not as fast as cucumbers or zucchini, but it has another value. This is a crop grown to be saved for winter. In a practical Amish garden, not every plant is grown to be eaten right away. Some crops are grown because they can sit in a cool shed, a dry basement, or a storage corner for many months after harvest. Butternut squash belongs to that group. Many butternut varieties need about 90 to 100 days to mature, so July is not suitable for every region. If your area has early frost, choose a smaller, bush type or faster maturing variety, such as butterbush or honeynut. If you are in zone 7, 8, 9, or a place where fall stays warm for a long time, Waltham butternut is still very worth trying. Another reason butternut is worth growing is that it often handles squash vine borer pressure better than many summer squashes. It is not completely pest-free, but if your zucchini is often destroyed early, butternut can be more durable. When sowing in July, count backward from your first frost date. If there are not enough warm days left, do not force it. Butternut needs full sun, soil rich in organic matter, steady water while the plant is young, and mulch around the base to hold moisture. If you still have enough season left, this is a very valuable crop. You are turning late summer sun into stored food for the cold season. The fourth crop to consider in July is small, fast-maturing melon varieties. This is not the ideal time to start large watermelon varieties in many gardens, especially where fall arrives early. The reason is that large watermelons need many hot, sunny days for the fruit to become big enough and sweet enough. If sown too late, the plant may still grow vines, flower, and even set fruit, but the fruit may not have enough time to ripen before cool weather or frost arrives. Therefore, in July, a more practical choice is small melon varieties. Medium-sized fruits, shorter ripening time, easier to harvest, and easier to use up. One small melon is often just enough for 1 or 2 people, so there's less waste compared with a fruit that is too large. If you are in a short season region, choose varieties around 65 to 80 days, and sow as early as possible in July. If you are in a hot region where fall stays warm for a long time, small melons can help extend the taste of summer into the late season. When growing melons, the important thing is to keep moisture even, especially when the plant is flowering and developing fruit. Melons need full sun and well-drained soil, but they do not like going from too dry to suddenly too wet. A mulch layer made from clean straw or decomposed dry leaves will help keep the soil cooler and hold moisture more steadily. The most worthwhile crop to plant in July is not always the one that produces the biggest fruit, but the one that can ripen in time, be used up, and truly fit the remaining season in your garden. The fifth crop is fall tomatoes, especially important if you live in the hot, humid south. In many northern regions, gardeners only need to plant tomatoes once in late spring, and then harvest until frost arrives. But in Georgia, Alabama, Texas, South Carolina, North Carolina, or Florida, spring tomatoes often start to get tired in July or August. The weather is too hot. The plants have trouble setting fruit. The leaves are more likely to get disease because of humidity, and the plants are no longer as vigorous as they were at the beginning of the season. In a practical Amish garden, this is the time not to cling to old plants at all costs. If a plant has already completed its job, we prepare a new round for fall. But fall tomatoes need different varieties. In fall, the days gradually get shorter, and the weather gradually gets cooler, so the plants do not have as much time as they do in spring. Prioritize early maturing determinate, shorter varieties that focus on producing fruit faster. Early maturing cherry tomatoes are also worth trying because the fruits are small and often have time to ripen sooner. Do not completely trust the number of days on the seed packet. If the packet says 70 days, the plant may need longer late in the season. When starting seedlings in July, place them somewhere bright and airy, avoid harsh afternoon sun, and keep them evenly moist. In the north, you may not need fall tomatoes, but in the south, they can create one more beautiful harvest in fall. The sixth crop is parsley. It does not stand out like tomatoes or melons, but if you want to extend the harvest season, this is a crop very worth sowing in July. In a practical Amish garden, not every plant has to give a very quick harvest. Some plants are sown to prepare for the next season. Hot summer weather can make old parsley leaves tough, cause the plant to flower, or make it look tired. So sowing in July is mainly about having healthy young plants for fall. When the weather becomes milder, you can move parsley into a garden bed, a large pot, or plant it near the kitchen. The plant will have time to develop roots and become stronger before the cold season. In zones 7, 8, and 9, parsley can continue producing leaves through winter if it is cared for well. For hot, humid regions, start it in a place with gentle light, avoid harsh afternoon sun, and keep the soil evenly moist because parsley seeds often germinate slowly. In regions with very cold winters, grow it in a pot, place it near a bright window, or use a cold frame if you have one. A long harvest does not come from one miracle plant, but from combining fast crops, cold-tolerant crops, storage crops, and succession planting. Parsley is a small but very useful piece of that system. Basil is fragrant and easy to use in the kitchen, but if you only plant one round from spring by mid or late summer, the plant often becomes old, starts flowering, develops hard stems, and the leaves are less tender. In a practical Amish garden, when a plant has passed its peak, people do not try to keep it forever. July is the time to sow another round, so there will be young plants to replace it. You can sow it in the garden or grow it in a pot near the kitchen, where it gets morning sun. In the humid east and south, you should choose a variety with better downy mildew resistance, such as Prospera. Keep the plants airy, water at the base, and avoid wetting the leaves in the evening. When the plant starts forming buds, cut the tops early. If the plant is already old, the stems are hard, and the aroma is weaker, let the July planting replace it. Lemongrass is not a plant many Americans think about in July, but if you like aromatic plants and cooking, this is a choice very worth trying. Lemongrass likes warmth, but in regions with cold winters, growing it in the ground year-round is not stable. The safer way is to grow it in a pot. During the warm season, keep it outdoors. When it gets cold, move it to a brighter and warmer place. When sowing from seed, the seedlings are quite thin and delicate, so use loose soil. Keep moisture even, provide good light, and do not bury the seeds too deeply. When the plant becomes stronger, Move it into a deep pot with good drainage and plenty of sun. Lemongrass does not provide a year-round harvest outdoors in every region, but one small pot can supply a few fresh stalks when needed. It is fragrant, beautiful, useful, and does not take up much space. Bulbing onions are very worth sowing in July, but you have to understand that onions do not only need good soil and even water, they also depend on day length. In the United States, there are short day, intermediate day, and long day varieties. The South usually fits short day varieties, while the North usually needs long day varieties. If you choose the wrong one, the plant may still grow leaves, but the bulb may be small. In Zone 7 and warmer regions, you can sow them, so the plants grow through fall and winter, then form bulbs when the conditions are suitable. In colder regions, treat July onions as green onions or starter plants, and do not expect large bulbs by the end of the year. Onions take up little space, have relatively few pest problems, and are used almost every day. You can trim a few leaves as green onions, but do not cut too much because the leaves feed the bulb. Shallots are smaller than large bulb onions, but they fit very well in a family garden because they are fragrant, can be used in many dishes, take up little space, and make good use of bed edges, garden corners, or deep containers. In a practical Amish garden, after summer crops fade, the soil should not be left empty for too long. Shallots are a suitable crop to fill those small spaces. Like bulb onions, shallots are also affected by day length and climate. Zones 7, 8, and 9 can try letting them grow through the cool season. Colder zones should grow them for young harvest, or they will need a cold frame, a small greenhouse, or protective cover. When sowing from seed, the seedlings are very thin and delicate, so the soil needs to be loose, weed-free, and evenly moist. Shallots are not as eye-catching as squash or melons, but they quietly turn small garden corners into valuable food. After hearing about these 10 crops, the important thing is not to plant exactly according to the list. Each region in the United States has a different growing season, so first check the first frost date in your area. Then compare it with the days to maturity on the seed packet. If you are in a short-season northern region, prioritize fast-maturing crops such as cucumbers, zucchini, short-season small melons, basil grown in containers, parsley for fall, or onions grown for young green leaves. Be careful with long-season butternut squash and fall tomatoes, because they may not have enough time to ripen. If you are in a temperate region, July is a very good time for succession planting. Cucumbers, zucchini, basil, parsley, onions, and a few storage crops if there are still enough warm days left. If you are in the hot, humid South, July is even more important. Old plants often begin to get tired because of heat, pests, disease, and high humidity. So this is the time to sow a new round. Choose varieties with better disease resistance and prepare for fall. The simple way to do it is this. In the first week, walk around the garden and see which plants are still healthy, which plants have begun to decline, and which areas of soil will soon be empty. In the second week, start sowing just enough, not too much. In the third and fourth weeks, keep the moisture even. Give young seedlings light shade if the sun is intense, then transplant them out in the cool of the evening. July gardening does not need to be complicated, but it must be timed correctly. Why does the Amish gardening mindset fit July so well? Because July is not the time when the garden ends, but the time when you need to observe more carefully and use the soil more wisely. In a practical garden, any plant that is past its peak is not kept forever. Any bed that is about to become empty is prepared for the next round. Fast harvest crops will fill the gaps at the end of summer. Cold-tolerant crops will move into fall. Storage crops like butternut squash will become food for winter, and small crops like parsley, basil, onions, or lemongrass help keep the kitchen supplied with something fresh to use. The lesson here is very simple. A long-lasting harvest does not come from planting once and then waiting for luck. It comes from succession planting, choosing the right varieties, calculating the first frost date, and not leaving good soil empty. That is why July is still a month very much worth sowing seeds.